Great, thanks, Jessica. All right. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Just by way of introduction for anybody here who does not know me, I'm Arian Olish. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Student and Faculty Innovation at WVU, which is a mouthful, but we get the fun job of working with students all the way through faculty and staff. Anybody that is innovative or entrepreneurial at the university and needs help on starting companies or getting access to resources, anything like that. So we like to host these webinars. We try to do them at least once a month, where we bring in representatives from funding agencies that provide SBIR and STTRs and let the program officers and the program managers tell you directly about the program and resources and aspects of the application that you might not be aware of. So Jessica is the wonderful program manager in our office that sets all these up. So a big thank you to Jessica. If you notice, she is recording this. So we will post our recording through our website. You're also always welcome to email us directly and we can send you the recording that way as well. So if you either have to drop off early today or you have a colleague maybe that wasn't able to make it, we will provide the recording. So without kind of delaying any further, we are incredibly grateful that the National Cancer Institute representatives are here today to talk to us about their SBIR and STTR program. And so with us today, we have excuse me, Dr. Cipriani, who is a program director at the Small Business Innovation Research SBIR Development Center at NCI. He oversees a portfolio of grants and contracts that support development of innovative cancer therapeutics, digital health technologies, and devices by small businesses. And before joining NCI, he was actually with the FDA as part of their research and regulatory review team. And what we were just talking about as everybody was logging on is that he is a graduate of WVU in the PhD program for genetics and developmental biology. So nice to have an alumni back with us today, talking with us. And joining him as well is Dr. Regmi, who's a program director at NCI as well within their SBIR group. He provides oversight, guidance, and administers funding and offers networking assistance for small businesses, helping them accelerate translation of cancer-related technologies. Before NCI, he was the program officer at the National Institute on Aging Office of Strategic Extramural Programs, OSSEP, where he led development of an entrepreneurship-focused program and played key roles in planning and implementation of a suite of programs to help small businesses and early career scientists. So clearly, both experts in this field. We're very excited to hear them today and hear what they have to share with us about their programs. I will just ask if anybody has questions, if you want to just hold those to the end. Alternatively, you can drop them in the chat and either Jessica or I can read them at the end. But that way we can get through the presentation, but there should be plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over.
Oh, thank you, Arian, and thank for the introduction, and thank you, Jessica, for hosting us. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we are going to present various funding opportunities and resources available from the National Cancer Institute to early-stage academic entrepreneurs and biotech startups. So today, I'll start by giving an overview of the SBIR and STTR programs and various funding opportunities we have in our office. Then I will turn it over to Saroj to talk about some key application tips and some of the non-funding resources that we have at NCI. So the SBIR and STTR programs are congressionally mandated programs. What that means is that federal agencies with an extramural R&D budget are required to set aside a portion of these funds to facilitate the commercialization of university and federal research development by small business. So these programs provide the largest source of early stage research and development funding for small businesses. So annually, the program's budget is around $4.6 billion. So there are 11 federal agencies participating in the SBIR and STTR programs. NIH is part of the Department of Health and Human Services, and we participate in both SBIR and STTR programs. The annual SBIR STTR budget of NIH is around $1.3 billion. So here is the link below if you would like to learn more about the SBIR and STTR programs in each of the participating agencies here. So at NIH, there are 27 institutes and centers, and 24 of them have the SBIR and STTR programs. The ones which are highlighted here are the 24 NIH institutes which have the SBIR and STTR programs. And NCI is the largest institute, and our annual SBIR STTR budget is around $200 million. So each institute has a specific mission, and they support technology within its mission space. And a lot of what we say today in today's presentation will be general to NIH, but there are some things specific to our institute, NCI, and we will point out those as we go through the presentation. And here is the link to find the contact information of program managers who run the SBIR program at each NIH institute. So there are multiple benefits to obtaining SBIR funding from NIH. First and foremost, it's free money, it's not a loan, and you don't need to repay the money. Second, the small business retain the IP rights for the technology they develop. Since every application go through the NIH peer review process, it provides a certain recognition and visibility to the small business, which companies can leverage to attract investment from private investors. So who is eligible for an SBIR and STTR award? To start with, the company should be organized per profit in the US, and the work should be performed in the US. The company should have less than 500 employees, and the principal investigator, which is the PI, the primary employment should be with the small business, both at the time of the award and the entire duration of the project period. And this is especially important if it's an SBIR. And finally, the majority of the company should be owned by one or more US individuals. And since 2012, venture capital-backed companies are also eligible to apply for the SBIR awards. So this is an important slide. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this slide. So because choosing the appropriate funding phase is really important and can significantly increases your chance of getting funded. So the SBIR and STTR small business programs are phased programs. Now, these are not related to the clinical trial phases, and don't get confused with their nomenclature. So like I said, these are phased programs, and there are 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So the phase 1, which is a discovery phase, company usually use the phase 1 stage to conduct proof of concept studies. You can request up to 400,000 for 1 year. And the 400,000 is for the waiver topics, and I'll be talking about these waiver topics later in the presentation. And depending upon the technology and the product, phase 1 may involve building or testing a benchtop prototype, establishing a preclinical efficacy data, or other studies that validate your innovation so that it can be successfully advanced to the commercialization. The objective of the phase 1 is to address all major technical risks so that you're competitive for a larger phase 2 funding that will support your development phase. Now, moving on to the phase 2, which is the development phase, you can where you can request up to $2 million for up to 2 to 3 years. So you can use that money to continue the phase 1 research and development efforts. For phase 2, you need to submit a strong commercialization plan along with your grant application. And the last phase is the phase 3, which is a commercialization phase. At this stage, there are no SBIR funding available. The expectation is that the company, you are based upon the work they do in phase 1 and phase 2, will able to raise private capital to fund the phase 3 activities. So in addition to our standard phase 1 and phase 2 at NIH, we also have the fast track mechanism where you can combine your phase 2 and phase 1 and phase 2 applications as one package, and it gets reviewed as one package. For a fast track mechanism, you can request up to $2.4 million over 3 years. And this mechanism is quite competitive, and we usually such as companies where, it's best to attempt the fast track mechanism if you have a substantial preliminary data. For companies that have already completed the proof of concept phase 1 studies, they can directly apply to a direct phase 2, and this opportunity is only available for the SBIR companies. Now, we also have a phase 2B program and a commercialization readiness pilot program to address the funding gap, which is called the valley of death, that majority of the companies face between the phase 2 and a phase 3 commercialization stage. I will go through these programs in detail later in the presentation. So the bottom line is we are here to help talk to the program directors, and we can guide you in selecting the right program phase based upon your technology and the product. So like I mentioned before, these are the NCI SBIR STTR waiver topics. As you can see, they are very broad, ranging from therapeutics to devices, diagnostics, and digital health technologies. If your topic falls in within one of these categories, you can request up to $400K for a phase 1, $2 million for a phase 2, and a $4.5 million for a phase 2B, and the CRP commercialization readiness pilot program, you can request up to $250K. So let's talk some of the critical differences between SBIR and STTR. Really, the big difference is that the SBIR permits partnering with the research institutes, whereas the STTR requires that the companies partner with the nonprofit research institutions like universities. And all the differences that you see down here flow out from the difference in the partnering requirement. Like in the case of the principal investigator employment in SBIR, the PI must be with the small business. And in the case of STTR, the PI can be employed either by the university or by the small business. And we get a lot of questions regarding the work distribution. And this is really important. In the case of STTR, a minimum of 40% of the work has to be done by the small business and 30% by the research institute. And the rest of 30% of the work can be done either by the university or by the small business. In the case of SBIR for phase 1, the requirement is that the small, at least 2/3 of the work has to be done at the small business, and the remaining 1/3 can be either outsourced to a CRO or it can be done at the university. In the case of a phase 2 in SBIR, at least 50% of the work has to be done by the small business, and the remaining 50% can be outsourced. And this is the most important thing. It doesn't matter whether you go through SBIR or STTR, the small business is always the applicant and the awardee. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our office, what we do, and who we are. So unlike other NIH institutes where the small business grants are managed by the program directors who also manage the research and training grants, at NCI, we have a centralized office, the SBIR Development Center, where we are responsible only for managing the small business program grants. So at any point in time, we at the NCI SBIR office have a central oversight in managing around 400 SBIR and STTR awards. We meet with applicants, provide them guidance on application preparation, and also resubmission process, and discuss various funding opportunities with them. We also provide training to all our awardees and potential applicants, and we also organize outreach events such as this by visiting organizations and universities to raise awareness of the program. We are also heavily involved in developing funding opportunities in various technology areas in the cancer space. And finally, we have a network of investors and venture capital groups where we facilitate connections between our portfolio companies and the investors. So this is so these are our program directors, and our director is Michael Weingarten. So our office has 12 program directors who cover a broad range of expertise across our portfolio. So reach out to any one of us to discuss your technology. So this is a quick snapshot of our portfolio. This changes a little bit every year. We don't set any specific amount for any particular area. We are always interested in funding innovative, high impact research projects with strong market potential in the cancer space. Um, in fiscal year 2022, our office made around 281 awards. 81% of these are grants and the rest are contracts. So, as you can see, despite our portfolio being heavy with the therapeutic projects, we recently have seen a significant increase in digital health projects also. So in 2018, we did an economic impact study to quantify the contribution of our program to the US economy. So between 1998 and 2020, we funded around 690 phase 2 awards amounting to $787 million in investment. So from this investment, the NCI SBIR funding resulted in 247 commercial products, and those products were able to achieve over $9 billion in sales and created around 100,000 new jobs across the country. That's a pretty good return on investment. So this is our website, sbir.cancer.gov. You can find information on our funding opportunities and various resources for applicants and awardees, like sample applications, regulatory resources. We have a ton of information on our website. So the most important advice that I would like to give to all participants today is to speak with the program officer before applying. You can send an email to the address listed here, ncisbir@mail.nih.gov. Our office will connect to a program director with the expertise relevant to your technology. So next, I'm going to talk about the funding opportunities. So we primarily have two funding mechanisms, grants and contracts. So the majority of our portfolio is funded through grants. Most small businesses apply under what's called the omnibus solicitation. This is an NIH-wide funding opportunity. And the research projects under the omnibus solicitations are usually initiated by the investigator. There are 3 receipt dates for the omnibus solicitation: January, April, and September. You can submit applications at these 3 receipt dates. And in addition to the grants, our office also participates in the contract mechanism, and this is only for SBIR. So every year, our office, along with the other divisions at NCI, identifies specific technology areas that are interest to the commercial sector, and also aligns with the key NCI research priorities. So the funding announcement for the contract topic typically comes out in August once a year, and there is only 1 receipt date for the contract topics. So here are some of the main differences between the grants and contracts. To highlight some, when you're applying to a grant, you're welcome to speak with the program directors such as me and Saroj and the member program directors in the office, at any point during the application process, and we can give feedback on your specifications page, on your research strategy and stuff like that. For contracts, you're not allowed to contact us. You're only allowed to contact the contracting office. The grants are usually reviewed by the NIH Center for Scientific Review, whereas the contracts are reviewed within the NCI by the Division of Extramural Activities. And for grants, companies usually submit a progress report once a year, whereas for contracts, in addition to the final report, the companies also need to submit quarterly progress reports. So there's a little bit more work involved for the grants. So this slide is a snapshot of all the funding opportunities we have at NCI SBIR. I will go through these funding opportunities in detail in the upcoming slides. Like Jessica and Erin mentioned, we'll share these slides with all the attendees. If you're interested in any funding opportunities, click on the embedded links for more information. So like I said before, most of the small business applicants we fund apply through the omnibus solicitation, and there are 3 receipt dates for this where small businesses can apply. with the January 5th, April 5th, and the September 5th. Under the omnibus solicitation, you can apply for a phase 1, phase 2, fast track, and direct phase 2, and also you can do a resubmissions too. When you try to look up the small business omnibus solicitation on the NIH website, you'll see 4 funding opportunity announcements, 2 for SBIR and 2 for STTR, and 1 where clinical trials are not allowed, and 1 that requires a clinical trial. So if your proposal does not have a clinical trial, you would apply for the one that's labeled clinical trial not allowed. So at NCI SBIR, we will accept any technology as long as it has a very strong market potential and addresses the unmet clinical needs of patients with cancer. So this is a new funding opportunity called the Small Business Transition Grant that Saroj manages. So this grant is modeled on the K99 R0 grant, which is the pathway to the Independence Award. So the way we see it is in terms of a K99 R01, where a postdoc eventually moves to an independent PI. Here, the purpose of this grant is to move transition the postdoc into an entrepreneurship, like into a small business. So currently we have 4 NIH institutes participating in the program. So the award is set up as a fast track mechanism, starting with a phase 1 STTR and then a phase 2 SBIR with a funding of $2.4 million for 3 years. In this grant, the postdoc or an early career scientist, NIH definition is less than 10 years post-terminal degree, or a postgraduate is the PI of the grant. So mentoring is the key requirement for this grant over the full course of the award on the program. So the PI is expected to have a technical mentor who can provide research and technical expertise, and a business mentor who can provide support to the PI for transitioning the technology developed in the university to the small business. Attending the I-Core during the phase 1 is also a requirement of the program. So during the phase 1 STTR, the PI can stay at the university, refine the technology with the proof of concept studies, and if successful, then the PI will transition to the small business and start the phase 2 SBIR. And there is we also require the applicant to show a clear no-go strategy when during this transition from a phase 1 STTR to a phase 2 SBIR. You can find more information about this program, the link here. And if you know any early career scientist who might be interested in this, please feel free to share with them this opportunity. The solicitation for this grant comes out once every year around April, and with an August deadline. And feel free to contact Saroj. He's the one who manages this program in our office. Next, we have the phase 2 Bridge Award. Phase 2 awardees from any federal agencies with projects relevant to NCI mission can apply to this program. So like I mentioned before, the program is designed to help awardees cross the valley of death to commercialization. So we recognize that the $2 million that you get from phase 2 is not going to be enough for a lot of cancer technologies to reach the mark, and especially investors want to see some early clinical data for start to invest in the company. So that's the reason why we started this program. One of the key requirements for this program is the matching funds. So the expectation is that the company would bring in a 1-to-1 matching funds from a non-governmental, non-federal government source at the time of the award. The matching funds could come from a private sector, venture capitals, large pharma companies, or angel investors. It's pretty broad. So you can request up to $4.5 million up to 2 to 3 years. The solicitation usually comes out in April, and the submission deadline is around August. So we started this, we've been running this program since 2009, and as of 2022, we awarded around $65 million to the Bridge Award recipients, and that resulted in $358 million in follow-on funding. Some other accomplishments resulting from this program include 17 clinical trials and 19 product launches. Next, we have the commercialization readiness pilot program. This is for the companies that have an active or a completed phase 2 or a phase 2B award. Companies can request up to $250K and use those funds to support activities outside of R&D, like regulatory affairs, reimbursement, consulting, technical assistance with the GMP manufacturing, etc. The CIRP aligns with this omnibus submission deadlines with 3 receipt dates, January, April, and September 5th. Again, this is a new program we started a couple of years ago. It's called the Innovative Concept Award. And the reason why we started this funding opportunity is to support high-risk, high-reward projects and disruptive technologies in the pediatric and rare cancer space. The projects are funded through a contract mechanism where we provide $300,000 over 1 year. The goal of the concept award is to provide funding to conduct studies, to de-risk the project, and generate data so that the companies can come back and apply for a phase 2 or a phase 1 or a phase 2 for additional SBIR funding. Some additional highlights of this funding opportunity are, we encourage the companies submitting a white paper, which is like usually 2 to 3 pages, so that we can provide, so that the companies would get a program input before they submit a full application. The applications are relatively short compared to the traditional omnibus grants, and we tend to make these awards within 6 months, a much shorter time frame compared to the grants. And you can, here is the link if you would like to find more information on the concept award. So these are the 11 NCI SBIR contract topics we issued for fiscal year 2024. As you can see, the top topics are quite diverse. Unfortunately, the deadline to submit the application for these FY24 contract topics has passed. The reason for me showing this slide is to give you an idea of the range of topics that we are interested in. And these topics change every year. The solicitation for the contract topics for fiscal year 2025 will be published around September 2024. So this slide details the 2 supplemental funding opportunities we have for our awardees. I'm just going to highlight a few things in this slide. So we have administrative supplements to provide additional funds to the awardees who are interested in conducting additional scientific work that might add commercial value to their technology. And we also have the diversity supplement, which provides additional funds to our awardees who are interested in recruiting trainees from diverse backgrounds and that are typically underrepresented in biomedical research. The funds that we provide with the diversity supplement would cover the salary, training cost, and travel cost of the trainees. You can these supplements can be submitted anytime during the active award period. And lastly, these supplements don't go through the peer review, but rather they are reviewed within the office by the program directors. And I'll hand it over to Saroj.
Thank you, Swami, for that really nice overview. And so I just want to reiterate. So, listening to this, you may be thinking that the purpose of this 1-hour presentation is for us to throw as many acronyms at you and throw in this alphabet soup, but that's not the case. We're really here to demystify the process for you. And our goal here is that, that you will reach out to us, you'll think about these funding opportunities, and you'll come talk to us if you have any questions about these opportunities. Our office is really available. We're all really here to help you out with the process. We understand that SBIR application may not be as straightforward as we would like it to be. So we're really your guides for this process. Next slide, please. So just to think about, getting started. So if you're thinking about getting started, think about that SF424. This is an application instruction for NIH as well as other agencies. If you're thinking about applying to the SBIR or STTR program, you are required to have these registrations in place. They require up to 2 months of time. So make sure you go ahead and finish those registrations a long time before you're thinking about even submitting an application. You also have the ability to look at things that NIH has funded in the past through this third link, and we'll share these slides, so you'll have all the links. And so definitely have a look at, these applications so that you get a sense of what are the kind of innovation that we're funding, and how does your project fit in with, in terms of this broad picture of things that we fund. Look at some sample applications. So we understand that SBIR applications may not be as trivial. So NIAID as well as us and others have put in some real examples that have been successful going through the peer review process. So definitely have a look at these sample applications, check them out. We've also thought a lot about helping with the application process. So we have some videos. These are called peer learning and networking videos planned. We had to use another acronym, of course. And so these will talk about how to write a good specific aims page, what are the first steps to starting a small business, and a lot of these other videos that might be really helpful as you're thinking about submitting an application. We also have a really nice infographic so that you have sort of a flow chart of things that you need to think about as you're thinking about submitting an application. So definitely use all of these resources before you think about submitting an application. They'll come in useful. The most important thing here is that registration, knock them out, get them out of the way before you submit. Next slide. Like I said, the first tip is start early. Give yourself enough time. Think about your product, refine your vision, think about all the equipment you're going to need, all the facilities you're going to need, and what kind of resources you're going to need as you're thinking about your project. Definitely think about a strong scientific team. That is going to be important. And the other piece is get letters of support early on from collaborators, from people that you're going to partner with. Like I said, definitely complete the administrative registration. There used to be 5. I believe there are 4 now. And I think I cannot stress this enough. Talk to us. Send your specific aims page. Write that 1-page summary of your innovation and come talk to us. And what that's going to do is we're going to give you some tips. We're also going to tell you what the right funding opportunity for you is as you're thinking about submitting an application, because there's so many funding opportunities, and then you may have a hard time figuring out which one is the ideal route to go. Next slide. So NIH has this really good nifty tool called Reporter Matchmaker. So you're able to click on Matchmaker, identify the best institute to submit your application. If you think whether it's cancer, whether you think it's biomedical instrument group, whether you think it's Institute on Drug Abuse, it'll really help you with that. It'll also help you figure out study sections as well as look at some of these similar projects. So this is a really nifty tool. And you can also look at funding by state. You can have a look at, some of the projects that have been funded in West Virginia, SBIR or non-SBIR. So this is a really good tool that I encourage you to check out. Next slide. The second tip is refine your vision. Talk to the right people. Customer discovery is really important. Definitely think about whether there is a need for the tool that you're thinking about. Talk to technical experts, talk to your potential customers, talk to investors, talk to previous and current SBIR awardees, and program staff, definitely. So definitely get help and definitely think about your product vision. Think about the study design. How can you identify strategies to mitigate risk? And what are the alternative approaches in your project if you're thinking, there might be potential problems? It's really good to think about your project overall and consider the study design. Next slide. Tip number 3, know the application components. These will be pretty familiar to you if you are used to the NIH system. If you've submitted NIH grants, whether SBIR or non-SBIR, a lot of the elements will be similar, but there will be that focus on product. So if you've been thinking about R01s or Ks will focus a lot on the candidate. The R01s will focus a lot on the increasing mechanistic insight into a process X, for example. In case of SBIR, there's always that focus on the product. You're really thinking about what the product is, and your background should include, what the product that you're proposing is, what is the innovation, and what is the significance. And you really want, For your aims, you want to propose a couple of aims for your application that are goal-based statements that talk about the key assays that you're going to do, that talk about the models that you're going to utilize, and that include quantitative milestones. And then you want to provide context. What is your goal here? Whether your goal, if you're thinking about a phase 1 application, you should think about, what your goal is, whether, you're thinking about phase 2, or you're thinking about IND enabling studies, you're thinking about engaging FDA, or you're thinking about, if it's a digital health product, directly bringing your product to market. That is going to be important. Next, yep. So research strategy is one of the other really important component of your application. For a phase 1 application, that's 6 pages. For a phase 2, that's 12 pages. So provide background information about your research strategy. Preliminary data is not required generally for a phase 1, but it is needed these days to be competitive. SBIRs have gotten really competitive. So I really recommend that you think about preliminary data for a phase 1 as well, at least some sort of in vitro data or some sort of publication to show that what you're suggesting makes sense, why you're doing what you're doing. Definitely provide a detailed technical plan to achieve the specific aims. Think about these quantitative milestones, your success criteria, and like I said, talk about pitfalls and alternative angles of attack. Don't try to hide them, just lay it out. Say what the pitfalls are and then explain what your alternative angles of attack is. Another really useful thing is a Gantt chart, just so that you have a nice timeline that talks about your budget and your time constraints that we find really helpful. Next slide. And so these are other application components. They're all important and they're very similar to RO1s. So, biosketch, standard NIH style biosketch, talking about facilities. What are the facilities and equipment that are relevant to the grant that you have access to? You have to provide budget for each project period. And if you're going to use a subcontractor, budgeting for that. And if you're going to have a STTR grant collaboration with a university as well as a startup, talk about budgeting for both. Title and abstract is really important. This is utilized to determine which institute should receive your application and which study section your application to go to. If your research has human or animal studies, then you definitely want to look up what NIH defines as clinical trial. It can be different from how you think about what a clinical trial is. So definitely check that link out to make sure that your application, whether it constitutes a clinical trial per the definition of NIH or not. Commercialization plan is really important for a phase 2. It is not required for a phase 1, but it just is really important because program is thinking about whether you have thought about your product in terms of how you're going to bring it to market, and it becomes really important. Letters of support, it's really helpful. And for SBIR grants, as you're thinking about letters of support, think about collaborators and consultants. That's really essential. But think about endorsements from clinicians, investors, end users, so that you can demonstrate that there's a need for that product. Next slide. Yep. So I already alluded to this. There's a really nice nifty clinical trial decision tree pool available through the NIH website. Have a look to make sure that your research, whether it falls under a clinical trial definition or not per NIH. Next slide. So budget considerations become really important. The SBIR budgets are total costs. So $400,000 is a total cost, including any direct or indirect cost. For a phase 1, for a phase 2, that's $2 million total. So think about these total costs. Think about the subcontracting restrictions. So there are subcontracting restrictions for both SBIR and STTR. Swami mentioned that earlier. But I do want to highlight one important fact is that CRO type activities may not be counted as subcontracting costs, provided that it is a commercially available service, number one. Number two is that there are no indirect costs involved. It's only direct costs of the small business, and it is a fee per basis. So there are no indirect costs. And the small business does all the analysis. So all the intellectual input is from the small business. You're just utilizing a third party to do, run assay X. So in that case, the subcontracting restrictions may not apply. So back again, there were a couple of other things. Yeah. So you can also request a 7% fee. That's your company profit. So I definitely encourage you to think about that 7% fee. That is, again, part of the total budget. So your total budget should be direct costs, indirect costs, plus that profit fee. There's that other extra program called Technical and Business Assistance, which is used for non-R&D type activities. So you hire a third-party vendor to do regulatory, market research, kind of activities that traditionally would not be allowable under a grant mechanism. So you can request up to $6,500 for a phase 1 and $50,000 for phase 2. So definitely think about that piece as well as you're thinking about submitting your application and the budgeting piece. Next slide. So definitely understand the peer review process. Majority of the applications, with the exception of certain RFAs, these specialized programs that NCI has created, a lot of them are submitted to the NIH, and then the study section is organized through Center for Scientific Review. There's a separate institute that manages these study sections. And so definitely think about that. If you would like to be a reviewer, follow the third link and submit an application. That may be a really good way of understanding how SBIR review works. What are the things that reviewers are looking for? So that may be good practice too. Next slide. If you would like to identify the right study section, CSR will do it for you. But if you feel that you want to do it yourself, there is that assisted referral tool wherein you will put in your summary of your application, and then it'll tell you which one might be an ideal study section for you. Next slide. So definitely understand the peer review process. Definitely think about what are the things that reviewers are looking for in terms of score. And so these are the main criteria in an SBIR grant. They're looking for investigators. So whether the investigators and collaborators as well as consultants. So you're looking at not just the PI, but also all the collaborators, whether they are trained and capable of completing all the tasks. Environment, whether the scientific environment will contribute to probability of success, whether all the facilities are there, whether there is independence to conduct all the research that is required. Commercialization, so that's very different from R01, whether the company's business strategy has a high potential for success, and this becomes more important in your phase 2, obviously. Significance, you want to think about the important problem, whether the problem is significant enough and has commercialization potential. Is there a market, right? Approach, here you're looking at design and method, whether they're well developed and appropriate, whether you've talked about potential pitfalls as well as alternative approaches, and then also innovation, how novel is the technology and the product. That becomes really important too. Next slide. So once you submit your application, you will get a summary statement where you will have a program contact. That is one of the program directors. You should think about reaching out to them once you've received your summary statement, and then you'll receive an impact score, and that kind of determines whether you're going to get funded or not. For grants, the lower the score, the better it is, the higher the odds of success. For contracts, the higher it is, the better the chance of success. So definitely think about that as well. Next slide, please. And so you will receive this written critique where they will look at the significance, the investigator, innovation, approach, and environment, and you will receive a critique of each of these aspects. And definitely think about this review, the scores, and how you can better it if you need to resubmit. Which brings me to my next point is be resilient, review the summary statement you receive, revise your application, and definitely think about resubmission. At least at the NCI, we found that your odds of success almost doubles with resubmission. So it's always a good idea to submit that initial application after talking to your program officer, getting reviewer feedback, and then address those holes that the reviewers have identified for you and resubmit and get funded. So definitely be resilient. You're not alone. It is a competitive process, and resubmission drastically improves your odds. Next slide. So I want to leave some time for questions. So I'll quickly go through assistances and initiatives. Next slide. So there are a lot of assistances and initiatives that are available to you. Before phase 1, there's the application assistance program. There are a lot of other programs during your application, and I'll talk quickly about those. Next slide. So there is also that entrepreneurial education program. If you are affiliated with a university, we've now thought about innovation-focused education program and courses in the field of entrepreneurship. So these could include cancer drug development, customer discovery, SBIR grant writing. So if you're thinking about creating a coursework for graduate students and postdocs to promote entrepreneurial education programs in the field of oncology, this may be a really nifty mechanism for you. This will award up to $300,000 per year in direct costs, with 8% indirect costs, given that this is an R25. And universities are eligible to apply. There are 3 deadlines: January 25th, May 25th, and September 25th. Next slide. So application assistance program. So this is one of the programs that are available to you before you are an awardee. This is sort of a program that provides mentor for applicants with great technology but limited NIH experience. The goal here is to get coaching on the SBIR grant writing process. They will not write a grant for you, but they'll help you think about your grant, and they'll help you review your specific aims page and then get advice, and also help you submit the application. Next slide. So I already talked about the peer learning and networking webinar series. This is on our website. It's a really nifty tool on various topics that might be of interest to you as you're thinking about SBIR and entrepreneurship, how to write a good specific aims page, how to implement a quality management system, first steps for starting a small business, keys for a successful IND submission, and things like that. Next slide. If you're a phase 1 awardee, whether you have a grant or contract with us, this is a customer discovery focused program. We will pay for you to participate. In I-Core, you will do 100 customer interviews, and that will shape your innovation. We want to refine your product and vision and help you think about not just the phase 2 piece, but beyond as you're thinking about commercialization. Next slide. For NCI awardees, there's also an investor initiatives program. So the goal here is to basically have your product be reviewed by real-time investors, private investors, pharma, as well as VC folks, then get constructive feedback from these investors as you're thinking about your product. The top companies that get selected will be also sent to various investor-focused meetings, such as Bio, Resi, and others, and will help you with the pitch coaching and mentoring, and will also help you with introduction to investors. Our goal is to make sure that once you have funding from us, you're also thinking about your product and that you are successful in your journey towards commercialization. Next slide. This is a program called Connecting Awardees with Regulatory Experts. All the awardees are eligible. This was designed to improve access to regulatory advice from the FDA. So we collaborate with FDA to provide early stage informal advice to companies through this program. This is a once-a-year opportunity for our awardees. Next slide. There are also a lot of other NCI resources. There's the NCI Experimental Therapeutics Program, wherein they will help you with target validation, drug screening, hit to lead development, and things like that. And also, different phases of clinical trial. All the researchers in academia, government, and industry is eligible to apply. There are 3 deadlines per year. And it's not a grant mechanism. Basically, the goal here is that NCI will allocate resources toward the implementation and development of submitted projects. There's also a prevent program. The goal here is it's very similar to NEXT, but here we're thinking about preclinical development of promising agents and biomarkers for cancer prevention. We also have a drug development consultation service, which is free, and this is provided by NCI staff with extensive experience. This is a 1-hour call, so definitely think about all of these resources as well. Next slide. Yeah, and so sign up for our mailing list. Go to sbir.cancer.gov. Sign up for monthly office hour. And the last thing that I'll tell you, and I've been saying this throughout, is don't hesitate to talk to us. Think of us as a resource, and reach out. With that, I thank you for your attention, and Swami and I are happy to take any questions you may have.
Jessica, are there any questions in the chat box?
I'm not seeing any questions right now.
Okay.
Well, if nobody has any questions, as they mentioned, you're welcome to contact them. You can also contact our office if you have any questions about specific things to WVU. And with that, thank you guys so much for being here and for your presentation.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting us.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.